Our moderator for this session could not be here this morning, so I will sub in with all of you. Delighted to have our panel of Indigenous companies here. And I would like to start by having each person introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about your company. Zach, do you?
Yeah, good morning. My name is Zachariah Ben. Yeah, it's Ben. Shay Zachariah Ben Yanishia. Yeah, Eden and Nashla. I was a touching by Shin Kitlachini Dashe, Ashihin Dashanella, Akwit Adana and Nashla. My name is Zachariah Ben. I was born and raised in Shiprock, New Mexico. I am a sixth generation farmer from there. My wife and I have two children, which is the inspiration for the company Biddy Baby Foods. We are a traditional baby food making company. We are incorporated on the Navajo Nation, and that's where all of our operations take place right there along the San Juan River.
Okay, thank you. Bernina, could you introduce yourself and your company?
Yat Bene, Shay Bernina Gray, Yanishka. Tachini Dishlino, Twenishani Bashin, my Dishkishi Deshado, Nathana Dene Deshinale. I am Bernina Gray. I reside here in Albuquerque. I own a company called Indigitize. We offer digital products, that's software development, mobile app development, as well as branding. We also want to get into the fintech sector and open an artisan marketplace. And then I'm a mother of 4 children. That's about it. I'm also in business development as well. So that's about it.
Thank you very much. Cece, could you tell us about yourself and your company?
Kechimalea. I'm Cece Meadows, Cecilia Meadows, and my family is from the traditional Yoemi lands, which is in Sonora. And I currently reside in traditional Biro Manzotiwa land, which is Las Cruces, New Mexico. And I am the founder and CEO of Prados Beauty, which is the first Chicana and Indigenous owned beauty brand to retail in a mega retailer. We are currently in 609 JCPenney stores. I am also a Army wife and also a mother of 4. And, putting my business and roots down in New Mexico is really important to me. Not just because it's a traditional homeland of my people, but also I love the state, I love the people, and I want to see it grow.
Thank you very much. Let me ask each of you in the same order. How have you merged current business practices with traditional knowledge or perspectives?
Yes, so for us at Biddy Baby Foods, when we started, it was out of necessity post-pandemic. There was no baby food available, and so we decided that, why don't we make this an everyday experience? Being able to, dedicate a crop towards our young children, and being able to use that as a healing mechanism for generations to come, and being able to tell that story using the land, using the natural resources there on tribal lands. And so with that story, it was able to unfold a lot of our experiences historically, and here in the present and into the future. And that's what has helped us to really use those tools that our ancestors once used, and continue them on today. And so with that, I think for us, there's always that saying of, we are our ancestors' prayers. We are their offerings. And so today we are those living proof of the culture is being taken care of. The economy is being taken care of through our contributing businesses that we have as entrepreneurs today with the modern ways of using economy. And so just our currency has changed a little bit, but that's kind of how we're able to use those values and instill them into our business models today and being able to serve and bridge the gaps for our communities.
Thank you, Bernina.
So Indigitize, is rooted in our very existence. It's the path of beauty, and that's the life ways of the Navajo. And then as far as branding goes, I implement that same protocol. And just like non-Indigenous businesses have their missions, their values, their uh, statement, we have that same. And I developed our own framework surrounding that. And it aligns with Native or Navajo teachings. Everything starts with a thought, and that's Nihitsahakis. And then there's planning, that's Nahata. And then there's assurance, and that's like Sihasin. So we move in that way. We incorporate that into each identity that we create for other companies.
Okay, thank you, Cece.
Yeah, so for us, I think one of the biggest drivers is, you're branding yourself as a cosmetics company and you're presenting it to the world essentially. So for us, and in the early planning stages of, you know, just being a little brown girl from the sticks, as I say, what is your story? What are you trying to tell? What is that going to look like to the world when you're trying to bridge the gap between what people think is a historical event of your life and that you're actually in the present? And so to be able to take the teachings and the stories and the ingredients and the branding and the pictures and the cooperation and collaboration between other Native and Indigenous artists and implement that into your everyday business, it's a big undertaking and a big responsibility. But I think that when you are able to capture the essence of what it is to be an Indigenous person, which is a whole, array of things, but on top of that, it's just being resilient and actually being able to tell your story in such a powerful way that it resonates not just with your own people, but with the whole world. That is the work. The work is trying to implement that every single day. And what does that look like? Well, it doesn't look like we're figures from the past or that we're extinct. It's that we're still here and we're still doing work to, be in the same space that wasn't, essentially created for us.
This next question, I think you've answered some aspects of it already, but if you have additional things to add, what are some values from your tribe that you have incorporated into operating your business?
So for us, we use, I guess both worlds of business. And so for us, we were able to use our for-profit, the Bitty Baby Foods, to make this product and then market that product and create a brand. And then from there, start a nonprofit. And so this nonprofit goes hand in hand with the for-profit. And so with this, we were able to create opportunity where in a world that is supposed to make us disadvantaged. And so with that, we became advantaged. And so we had the upper hand. And so with that upper hand, we're able to now look at not just a simple ROI or a simple return of investment. We're looking at a social return of investment, being able to see the impact that we're creating within our communities through the product and the brand, and most importantly, the funding that we're able to bring in through grant funding to fund a lot of the initiatives that we have. One prime example is our Farmer in Residence program, where we're able to instill the traditional ecological agricultural knowledge and instill that into our young 30 and under farmers. And then within that curriculum, heal them. And then so our first module in that curriculum is healing yourself, your spirit, and your mental parts of yourselves. And so with that, you're able to continue on. Then you can think about financial literacy. Then you can think about starting to look into investors or a business plan, knowing that, the historical parts of yourself are now healed. And so, being able to instill those values of the the net philosophy, and being able to have those one-on-one interactions with our youth and able to propel them into the future, and so that way they can start their own lineage of generational wealth.
Thank you, Bernina.
So this goes back to the planning, the Nitsahakis and everything else. It starts with the business plan, and we always iterate on that. And also, a lot of storytelling is incorporated in our business structure, which is the very heart of Diné culture as well, coming from oral historians. So a lot of that, I think it ties back into, and the main purpose of the branding and digital media marketing is to tell these companies' stories. And that's how we incorporate that back into our business structure.
Yeah, I think for us, it's, when you think about, just like your carbon footprint of what you're leaving on the world and why we started the business, it was really about just a need to teach others a different way. And I think that that's one of the biggest drivers of, that I've learned as, the oldest in my family and being female, and that our stories are very matriarchal. They're passed down generation to generation. And so when you're incorporating that into business, it's really just teaching, the things that are the core of you. And for us, it's always been about sustainability. It's always been about, how we package our goods and what makes us different. What is, something that you can recycle after you use it. There's so much waste in the world, and you don't want to contribute to that, but you also want to be in the same playing field as them. So it's like, what's wrong with making a lipstick tube that's, made out of recycled plastic, and then you can recycle it after you're done, or you can keep it because you put such intricate designs on it that you don't want to throw it away. And so for us, that's kind of been our staple and stamp in the world, is that the beauty of creating a beauty, cosmetics company is that it doesn't just start when you put it in your face, it's when you get it in the box. And so I think for me and for my grandmother, especially, who was the driver of, when I was a kid, I watched her put lipstick and blush and eyeshadow on all with the same lipstick tube. And it was like, how did you get the blending to, because now as a professional makeup artist, I'm like, I don't understand how she did all of those things with one lipstick tube, but it was trying to crack the code that there is possibility in everything if you just try hard enough. And so for us, and just like Zachariah, we also have a nonprofit. It's not just about making money for us. It's about sewing it back into our communities. It's about investing into other small businesses, other innovative businesses that don't have the opportunity to raise capital, or, our systems work a little bit different because for one company that doesn't take your product as collateral, that's something that we do look at. And so just being able to take that knowledge and that teaching that sometimes you take for granted, and as you get older, you're like, oh, this is why that was. I think that that's a driver for recognition of what has happened in the past and what we are bringing here into the future and beyond.
Thank you. I think that leads really well into the next question, which is how do you navigate the balance between transactional and relational approaches in your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I think for us, growing up, you always have that the community to help you, and sometimes you're down and out. And so for me, I grew up impoverished. I grew up poor. I remember like having to stretch $20 for a week in a lot of experiences like that. And so, with that, like you would have to rely on a good example of this was, I do sand paintings, and that's my first medium of art. And so I use natural pigments to create a story, and then sell that story. But the lashback that I would get is that you're exploiting your culture. Why are you selling your culture? And so for me, I saw it as an opportunity to reserve it, to create these cultural repositories that you can admire and heal with. And so, that was a really good world of understanding. And so for me, I would simply tell people it's like, well, I'm sharing our story because we're not doing enough at home. We're not doing enough at home to preserve the culture, to continue on the language and these prayers and these ceremonies. And so with that, like, this is my way of preserving what we can, because I know this painting in 100 years will then be donated to a museum where my people's children can go and they can, admire that and reconnect to that story. And so, but it's like, but it's transactional. You're getting cash for that. And I was like, well, I have to keep the lights on somehow. I have to get gas to go to and from work, or, I need to clothe myself. Right now in a modern day, like, we cannot, it would be nice to head back and continue to hunt and farm and just only do that. But right now we're in a modern world, and that modern world is that direction that we have to head into. And so with that, I don't want to no longer live disenfranchised. I want to be able to, have my children inherit something, and that's going to be the knowledge first and foremost, the ceremonies, the language, and then from there, um, a business they can inherit, a savings account, a bank account that they can then inherit, and then they can continue that on. And so for us, we then use our business model to create that same, to be a part of that philosophy there. And so with that, for us, we do person-to-person sales. We do cash itinerant sales. But, you know, for us, like, we've created such a successful brand, and it's a lot of work to do it organically, that it's expensive. We need to sustain our operations. We need to pay our laborers. There's diesel for the tractor, all these expenses. And so with that, like, our people cannot afford our own product. So how do we work around that? And so with that, we decided to become certified so we can do farm to institution, farm to school, and then farm to grocery store, farm to retail markets, like that. So that way our people can then afford the product. But most importantly, understanding that a lot of our people are still struggling, that a lot of them have access to SNAP, WIC, EBT, food banks across the state of New Mexico, became our primary market. And so that's what takes up about 80% of our sales. So that way our food still reaches our target demographic, and it's not coming out of their wallet.
Bernina.
So I feel like our business is, well, starting from like traditionally, our businesses were rooted in which is kinship. And we knew everybody we conducted business with. We could say, oh, Shema, and that means like my mom, and that's just clan wise, like, hi mom, like, would you like some corn today? I have an abundance of corn. And mostly it was gifting. And there was that sense of reciprocity where they would have like something in abundance, and they would offer you in return when they saw you were in need, or if like they just had extra, they would be like, oh, I have extra, you can have it. And I think that just that aspect of the relationship and having the integrity to give somebody payment or just something of value in return for something that they've given you has been sort of diminished by modern business practices, especially when it comes to establishing like nonprofits or LLCs. Most of the time, I say that these LLCs have their own sense of identity, and they more or less they have more power than an individual person does, especially an Indigenous person. And when you have those LLCs, you tend to hide behind them. And that's where the transactional relationships come in. And people don't feel like they have to pay you after a while. You know, they're like, oh, well, I'm protected. There's money coming in somewhere and they'll get their money eventually, you know? So I think that just knowing people and building those relationships and conducting business with people that we know sustains us in that manner. So yeah, that's my take on like the transactional and relational. Yeah.
Thank you, Cece.
I would say for me, it's a little bit, I would say it's a little bit more challenging because, and not in life, but like in this particular wheelhouse where you're trying to be like the first, you know, beauty brand in a retail space. And so when I got the first contracts and it was 609 stores, it took me 2 years and $500,000 to get into those stores. And when you're knocking on everyone's door saying, hey, I have 2 POs that are over $1 million and I need less than half of that to create this product that is already award winning and best selling. It just needs to go into a bigger space, and you get 124 no's in 3 years, and still no's because I'm still independently owned and operated. And that feeling of that the business was built on relational, you know, it's who made this brand. Well, I thought it up and I did the work, but I did it with the cheers and the praise and the, you know, prayers of my people and my relatives. Because one thing about a native auntie is she will tell you when you created trash, and she will tell you when you have created something that is wasting her money and something that doesn't work. And so when you go back to the drawing board and you pull the things that you know, which is, you know, traditional ingredients in cosmetics, which is jojoba oils or lavender, or, you know, just traditional things that you wouldn't think would go into cosmetics. That is the transaction. That is what you are asking people to pay for. You are asking them to pay for traditional ingredients, sustainable packaging. You're asking them to invest in your story so that you can take that back and give it to your people, and not so much that it breaks you as a business, because you have to make money and you have to grow. And I was just telling Zachariah and Bernina this morning, I always thought that my life would be in finance and real estate. But when it pivots and you're trying to create something that's never been done before, and in such a way that has care and it has relationship and it has tradition embedded in it, you have a bigger responsibility. So when you're asking people to buy into that, that's the transaction. That's the relational part of it. And then you're going to pay me for it so I can, you know, invest in kids who want to go to NMU but don't have transportation or way to pay for books, or, and so it's just a generational teaching that you pass down. And in Spanish, it's lo que haces con todo corazón nunca puede ir mal. It's like what you do with your heart can never go wrong. And so when you're carrying those things into this modern world, that's the thing that matters, and that's what projects you forward.
Thank you for those thoughtful insights. Our next question is, how have you navigated resonomics or reservation economics?
So I think, right, every day. But I think for us, it was what we've learned so far is, don't rely on others, and don't trust others, unfortunately. And I think with that, like where I'm coming from is not the community, but parts of yourselves that grow out of that community. And so, as you're growing upwards. And so, you have to navigate the crabs in a bucket. You have to navigate the trauma. You have to navigate a lot of um, the infrastructure and resources that are non-existent on tribal lands. And so for us, like when we first started our business, we are domestically incorporated on the Navajo Nation. But we have not seen any type of support in the 5 years that we were created from our own tribal government. No type of investment of time, money, resources. And so with that, like you decide, as an entrepreneur, you cannot wait. So, and in doubt, you got to move forward. And so, with that, moving forward is you start looking outside of that. And so, a great resource for that became the UNM Rainforest Innovations. The program in itself to be able to go out, and that's why I'm wearing my shirt today, is because I'm proud to be a tribal liaison. A part of the New Mexico Tribal Entrepreneurial Enhancement Program, where it allows me to go out and create the resource that was non-existent when we started our company. It allows me to go out and make those connections with other tribal entrepreneurs across the state of New Mexico, and then some. Other states have reached out. Other tribes from outside of New Mexico have reached out. How have you done this? How have you done that? As an entrepreneur that's on the res, it's hard. But how have you navigated it? Why are you successful? And so I feel proud now to be able to have that backing of UNM that allows me to then share those resources, that support that allows me to go out and create more entrepreneurs and make their dreams a reality. So that has helped me to navigate Resonomics, is having that support, having that backing, having that ability to rely on somebody and trust somebody or an organization or a university, and being able to create prosperity and enhancement in the entrepreneurial communities that are still struggling to this day in reservations. And so that's what has been my experience so far, and it's been amazing.
Thank you, Bernina.
I would say that there's not really a way to navigate it. You just gotta claw your way out of everything, you know. Like Zach, I grew up in poverty, and I came out here to Albuquerque in about 2010 to escape domestic violence, and then basically rebuilt my life from there. And a lot of it stems from like lack of housing, lack of opportunity, lack of education out there. And I think my business was created out of necessity. You know, I had like no other avenue to turn to. I wasn't academically educated, but like I read books all my life, so I had like a high vocabulary since I was a kid. I don't act like it, but I do. But yeah, like I guess that's where the res comes in, and I'm like real gritty sometimes. But yeah, I think that we're very similar to non-indigenous entrepreneurs in that way. And like if there's a will, there's a way, and we always find it. If our tribe won't help us, we find outside resources. And I'm lucky enough to have come across a plethora of resources, everything from rematriating economies to ASU's Indigenous Leadership Academy, as well as finding business development work with mission-driven finance. Yeah, so basically, I'm still clawing my way out. I'm the last person to ask.
Yeah, I would say
Resonomics for me is, just I don't know, it's just kind of like a challenge that you have to rise to the occasion and learn. And really, I think that speaks to, the resilience of not just Native and Indigenous people, but, just the human spirit when you have something good that you're sitting on. I want to be the unicorn of New Mexico. And because it's being done, because someone's already done it. And when you limit yourself in the possibilities of what can be done by the resources that you have and the lack of those resources, that dream can die very, very quickly. And so I think for me, we were talking a little bit about this yesterday, is you just become very resourceful with your abilities and the things that you have and the things that you don't have. And so my heart is really to preserve Native and Indigenous culture through artwork. And so I work a lot with Native artists from all over the world. It's not just my tribe. It's not just in New Mexico or Arizona, because I'm originally from Arizona. But I work with tribal nations all over the world, and I'm pitching the possibility of having their artwork and their stories preserved in the retail space, and that costs a lot of money to create packaging and ingredients and licensing and trademarks and copyrights. And it's like, this can cost easily $250,000, but I have $15,000. How am I going to make that work? Well, at that point, you feel like Jesus sharing a fish. Like, it's like, is it an analogy or did it really happen? And so I think that's where Resonomics comes in. And so you partner with this artist and you give them the handshake and the trust that they're going to own their collection eventually when it comes out. But we're going to pay, our really good friend, Stephen Paul Judd, who owes you a favor, and have packaging created by him. And you're going to make a call to, a friend that you made in college who is now a chemist, or you're going to call a friend now who does social media marketing, or a friend who does grant writing. And you're going to pull all of these resources together. And that is what Resonomics is. It's when they see what you've created at retail in the store, they can walk in and see it, that they had a part of that. And it's a hard thing to do because it's so many steps to get to the end game, and it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. And that's kind of like what our story is as Indigenous and Native entrepreneurs. And my husband is an officer in the Army, and he does, I call him the brainchild of the Army because he's so smart, and he does, he works with spreadsheets all day, and he does research, and he does all of these things for them. And I'm like, can you please help me write a brand deck and show 10 years of what Prados will look like to an investor? And he's just bloop, 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 bloop. Very easy. It's good to go. Present it. And why isn't that resource available to all Native and Indigenous, or just people in general? Well, it's really about who you know and not what you know, unfortunately. And when you think about Resonomics, it's really about what you did to get there and what that looks like at the end, because you're still trying to bring honor to your people and have a stamp in the world that says, I did it in the right way. And in the right way at the end is always within community. And so that's what I'm really thankful about being an entrepreneur, and that grittiness that it takes to be an entrepreneur, and the hopefulness that it doesn't have to be as hard for the person that comes after me, because I'm so hopeful for those that come after me.
Thank you. As we come near the end of the session, Let me ask you, what advice would you give to non-Indigenous investors or businesses seeking to collaborate with Indigenous entrepreneurs in a respectful and impactful way?
Yeah, I think for us, we've just learned that this year is the power of no. And you know, sometimes you do get investors that want to invest into the genetics of the seed, the heritage seed that we work with. And you know, we've got offers there. We've got, here's a prime one. We got offered to be a part of Shark Tank. And you know, that's like number one investors on television. But you know, for us, it's like, you know, we respect that. We know that we're in a good position now where people, investors like that, are starting to look at us rather than us searching for them. So how do we make those missions align? You know, on Shark Tank, what do they invest? They invest for, you know, however amount of dollars for equity, a percentage of your business. And so for us, like, as soon as we start selling off our business, then we no longer have control. We no longer have our values aligned. And then, you know, we can have an $1 million investor tomorrow who will take up probably 40, 50% of the company. And then we no longer have control. But they're looking for, you know, what is their ROI? And so for us, you know, we're not able to then meet the community's needs, or, you know, then we have to start looking at retail to pay off the investment or buy back our percentage. And so it creates a dilemma. And so those are some of the things to consider when working with an Indigenous person in business who is looking at solving a problem in their community, who is looking at bridging a gap within the economic disparities that we face, and most importantly, healing, using entrepreneurship to heal. So as you can hear from the panel, that, you know, as an entrepreneur, we're not in it to get rich quick overnight, even though that is the basis of Western business models outside the reservation. For us, it's about healing from intergenerational historical trauma. It's about, you know, creating or adapting to our currencies because we've become disenfranchised with first contact. It's about making investments or building generational wealth that was severed with first contact. It's about, you know, how much buffalo skin back then is now worth this amount of money today, and that's what I want to invest into my community. And so be conscientious of those moves. Be conscientious of the investment that you make in that sense, knowing that the person that you want to be investing towards or see your mission or business models align, that's what they're going to be looking at first, is how will my community benefit? Then I can benefit if my community is benefiting. And so, you know, a really good example again is the Tribal Enhancement Program, where they took the initiative in seeing that there's a disparity, there's a disadvantage in a demographic here in New Mexico. So they went out, sought after, and applied for the grant, came back and said, all right, now we have the money to invest into tribal entrepreneurship using a model from right to start to create that opportunity. And so here's the opportunity talking in front of you about how that's why and that's so important. And so, you know, being able to have that, it really, you know, now I'm able to, you know, showcase and bring about these business models that we can then introduce into the modern world, and help develop more. So, you know, it's been an amazing journey, and I feel like that's how you can be able to make those investments, or simply sharing resources, or partnering on a grant, or providing TA to these young and up and coming entrepreneurs today.
Thank you, Bernina.
I would say to get to know us, you know, goes back to that kinship. And I hate to say it, but I'm on like the total end of the spectrum from Zach here. I do hold my company in Digitize close, but I'm also willing to go off on a tangent, be a serial entrepreneur, and just exit out of a number of companies and like, here, take over, just give me a board seat, you know? And yeah, I think that just get to know us. We're just like you, maybe a little smarter, but yeah, that's about it. Oh, and funnier. I'm joking. All right, Cece.
That's the part you need to learn is native humor. I said that was the part that you need to get to know, which is native humor. Um, I my opinion resonates with both Zachariah and Bernina that I want to preserve, my culture and that of my relatives. And I really just want to see all of us win. When I see so much of the landscape of, appropriation of Native art, our stories, the way that we live, and that appropriation puts you in kind of this subcategory that it's from the past, but it's right now, it's present, and it's in the future. And so when I think about my business and what I want to preserve for the future, I think about my children and I think about creating generational wealth for them. I was the first in my family to own a home. I started working in banking at 19 years old. I had a customer who I was a server at Applebee's, and he was this old finance officer, and he would always tell me you should get into banking and, learn about money. Because I didn't grow up with that, and so I kind of just didn't see myself in that type of space. But once I got into retail banking and I got promoted 6 times in 2 years, I was kind of like, well, maybe I am smart. Maybe what I know as a cultural and how I've been raised in my heritage and to carry that forward can work in this landscape, because I'm getting promoted for it. It wasn't because I knew everything about numbers. It was because I had the personality. I had that drive to learn as much as I could from who was teaching it, and then incorporating that and taking it back to my people, to my family. And so that is a great responsibility. And then I'm like, Bernina, I'm like, hey, you give me X amount for my business and I'll be a board member because I'm tired. Um, so I would say that for anyone who wants to invest in a business that's owned and operated by Native or Indigenous people, is I agree with that. Like, get to know us, get to know our why, get to know what the end game is for it. And really what it is, it's the essence of what an entrepreneur or a business person is to be seen, it's to be respected, it's to have a place in the world, and put your stamp on something and say that I created this not just so that you could wear it and consume it, but so that you could appreciate the story that comes behind it, and that's the thing that keeps going forward. And so that doesn't look like a Shark Tank type investment where you're offering me 250 grand for 30%, but I've already made $1 million in sales. Like, don't look at me like I'm not smart or I'm not educated or I don't understand your number game. I think that disrespect comes in a lot of different ways, and that's one thing that I know for sure our generation doesn't take very well anymore. And I feel sorry for whoever has to deal with my child who's coming after me, um, because I have a 7-year-old who goes to the office and is like, what are we doing today? And what are we creating? And what's your job? And so that fierceness and that powerful embodiment of your child that you are creating to come up behind you, those are the types of people that you're going to be doing business with. And so getting to know us and the essence of our heart and what it is that we want at our core, it's really just to win. And these are great businesses that people should be investing in. And I don't know why you're not. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our panel. That was just a terrific panel today. So thank you for starting us out.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah.